Today, go on a journey with me around the world, but one that began with a stock chart. In today's fresh episode, we're taking a new look at Algorand. For example, I found two charts quite interesting. First, this on the screen is the Algorand price chart over 1 year. Now, if you take this foreign currency exchange chart between the USD and NGN, you see this chart, and the most notable thing to me here are the peaks and valleys seem to align. Let's combine them on the screen into just one image. There we go. Now, isn't that interesting? So, looking at these two price charts, what are we really looking at? One is the Italian blockchain trilemma-solving technology known as Algorand. The other is something called NGN, and it's a something that would perplex and confound me, and lead a close friend to saying, quote, "You gotta be kidding me," end quote. This entire story began with a tweet. So when I see Algorand spinning up a presence in Africa, I immediately began asking some questions. For example, consider the tweet on the screen from the official Algorand account. Quote, "Our partnership with Koibanx and Algorand will create over 1 million jobs for Nigerian youths with just their talent and mobile phone. It will allow millions of educated Nigerians to get better paid jobs using their talent as a way out of poverty." End quote. Welcome to Unusual Due Diligence. I am your host, Poseidon, the mighty god of the sea. It is the spirit of Poseidon that brings to life me, the talking milkshake. In today's fresh episode, we take a long-awaited look at Algorand, and this is perhaps the craziest story that I've ever covered on this channel. Let me explain what I mean by unusual. Twitter is an interesting place. The slender column timeline is a little slice of content that tends to be thematically consistent. For example, if you go to twitter.com/unusualdd, you find my Twitter account where I post backstage happenings, favorite photos, and musings on the latest happenings in the industry. Now, if you go to Anchor, what you see is a steady stream of self-promotion around Web3, their wild RPC growth, the promotion of the Anchor gaming SDK, and more. And over here on Flex and Network, what I see are multiple ways to pay, new providers, opportunities, and business deals where the AMP token is silently taking over the financial settlement space of the global economy. Shifting over to Solana, and this is what we see. Solana is promoting their development ecosystem, and you can see this steady strip of stories here. So I just went over several unique chains or solutions, and Algorand really jumps out at me. Look here at what Algorand is doing on the screen. This is, I'd say, unusual. The board of Algorand and even the project itself have intimate ties with MIT, the Digital Currency Initiative, Project Hamilton, and a country north of Africa called Italy. Italy and Algorand are important for our conversation today because they're going to expand from there into other non-government organizations, and we need a common base to start. Now, if you aren't sure why I say Algorand is connected to Italy, it's by way of a computer science professor that is heavily involved in something called zero-knowledge proofs, but also the founder of Algorand. On the surface, that might sound like something this channel is just inherently about, going from zero knowledge to proof. However, I've covered in prior episodes on the channel the deeper links between Algorand and Italy, but let me surface a couple key points. Let's summarize it all, say, from one image. In this, we see Silvio Micali, who is the computer scientist who claims to have solved the blockchain trilemma. Second, note that the domain here, that .it at the end, stands for Italy, but presents an English landing page. So far, we've identified that Algorand has strong Italian ties, and yet mysteriously over the last year demonstrated an odd price correlation with an FX currency initialized as NGN. What is NGN? Well, that's the foreign currency of Nigeria. And here's where the rabbit hole gets pretty deep. In 2020, Italy signed a trade MOU, that's Memorandum of Understanding, between Italy and Nigeria to strengthen trade relations. There's this organization that's specifically called, and we can see it here in the screenshot, called the Italian Trade Agency. Okay, that's pretty interesting, but there's a new question here, and that next question is this. I wondered about whether the Italian Trade Agency had any overt references to Algorand, and my first means of answering this question was just to go to their website and search specifically for Algorand. No results were found. Searching for blockchain will pull up this paper, which walks through possible scenarios of cryptocurrency connections, however. What's so interesting about this paper is that if you look over, say, one of their example use cases of blockchain technology, what you find is a hypothetical example involving tomato sauce. which I've translated on the screen for you. The key bits here are to think about how recording the steps is a kind of improvement to the supply chain of the tomato puree. This is why I find the following article on the Algorand website so interesting. And it has nothing to do with tomato puree, but it does involve Algorand, blockchain, and Italy. The headline is this, quote, Italy's largest consortium of olive oil producers partners with Euronet and adopts the secure and sustainable Algorand blockchain to improve supply chain transparency and efficiency. End quote. That's not quite enough to link Algorand to the Italian government, which became a kind of subtle question here. The question I'm exploring is whether and why Algorand chose Nigeria. Why do that? Is Algorand doing or accepting other grants or connections with the Italian government? Well, according to this image, the answer is yes. Quote, the Algorand Foundation has awarded a grant for the Project MFi, a special purpose virtual currency for the COVID-19 socioeconomic emergence in Italy, end quote. Or consider this item, quote, Italy's largest copyright management institution moves to represent authors' rights as NFTs on the Algorand blockchain, end quote. The partnership between Nigeria and Algorand is linked together through an NGO. That's a non-government organization called Developing African Group. And I see in a lot of media that they toss around the initials DAG, but really what is this organization about? And sometimes I note that I see something called African Development Group, or ADG. The trick then is this. The trick is figuring out what the substantive difference is between the two. Let's start with ADG and figure that out, and maybe we can clear the path. Quote, African Development Group ADG, or AfDev Group, is a regional management consulting firm in the West Africa's leading advisor on public-private partnerships, international development, livelihood projects, and social business strategy, end quote. Well, viewer, it gets pretty wild from here. You see, the ADG, or is that DAG? I'll clear that up here in a moment, is connected in with an organization called the AfDb, or African Development Bank Group. A slide describing the characteristics of the AfDb is now on the screen. Consider these subtle points about the African Development Bank. The AfDb was established in 1964 with over 80 member countries. It has authorized capital of $94 billion US, raises money from the capital markets, and is connected to a Nigeria trust fund established in 1976. So here's the question. Is Italy connected to this in some way? Well, yes, as there are a slew of other countries. Remember, I said 80 member countries were connected to the African Development Bank. But for our purposes today, we see Italy clearly has a relationship to the ADBG, or African Development Bank Group, as shown here. Now, here's where things really start coming together in an important way. If you click into that Italy link shown on the screen, what you find out is that Italy sponsored a program with the ADBG that's called the Initiative for Risk Mitigation in Africa, or IRMA. That is now on the screen. This is an older program and not one I was expecting, nor is it one I found a direct link to Algorand on. What I did get from this is a clue. In 2018, the African Development Bank launched the Coding for Jobs program under the Youth in Africa initiative. This is an interesting program that the ADBG group has invested over $1.6 billion over in the last decade, with a singular focus to modernize the workforce. And it was here that I felt like I had reached a dead end. Perhaps I couldn't tie it all back together again, but that all changed as I dug a bit more into the African Development Bank Group's website, and then found this section on Youth for Africa Initiative, and then specifically this little hyphen. Now, if you recall at the very start of this episode, I noted that the Algorand website had a .it. As we see Silvio Micali, who is the computer scientist who claims to have solved the blockchain trilemma. Second, note that the domain here, that .it at the end, stands for Italy, which stood for Italy. So why here on the landing page for an important economic program for the African Development Bank Group is there something called AfDb-ITCILO? So what's a ITCILO or ITCILO? ITCILO is an international training center and organization, and the IT does not stand for Italy. But the most notable part about this is the Contact Us page, and here's why. The contact information, well, that takes you to Italy, literally. It's now shown on the screen. And here's what's curious if you go searching for a link between ITCILO and Algorand. You end up discovering just a few results, but one of those results is quite intriguing. There's a Twitter post from an @Unidroit org. This Twitter post connects ITCILO with Algorand and Silvio Macaulay. Clicking into this Twitter link will take you to the Algorand founder giving a talk to this organization called Unidroit. Unidroit is an interesting organization because of its purpose. Wait, is that the Algorand founder on the screen? Hold that thought. Quote, Unidroit's basic statutory objective is to prepare modern and, where appropriate, harmonized uniform rules of private law understood in a broad sense. End quote. So, if you haven't already, Unidroit and ITCLO are connected. Consider this release on September 15th of 2021. Quote, the ITCLO in partnership with IUSE, UNCITRAL, and Unidroit is open, end quote. So, this is interesting. Lots of initials are being thrown around, but let's hold on for a moment. Let's go back to this image of the Algorand founder. Why was he talking or giving a speech here? What was all that about? Well, viewer, I found and dug up the program for you, and it's on the screen. Can we just pause for a moment to note that the IMF and a blockchain inventor are giving a talk at the same time, in the same time window? What an amazing time we live in. But let's go back a moment and talk specifically about this Developing Africa group, which I suggested is likely connected to the African Bank Development Group. After all, if you go to their website, what you discover is that the organization is an IP rights company based out of the UK. What's interesting about the Developing Africa Group project is that the CEO behind this project, his name is Ben. Ben is from Nigeria and has been working on the problem of modernizing Africa for well over a decade, as is evident by this article published in 2013 titled, quote, How Can Africa Move Away from Aid Dependence? End quote. Ben has attempted to solve this problem before, which is admirable to keep up the good fight. For example, he is also chief at another project called Security in Africa. Ben's Developing Africa project is part of his ambitious attempt at transformation. You can find a slide deck online from many years ago. A link to that is below. For the time being, let's just assume this organization is not quite a dotted line and more of a dashed line between Developing Africa Group and the other well-known organization known as the Africa Development Group. Is it a direct tie? I would say no, but something occurred to me that was slightly more interesting than strengthening the connection between those two organizations. There's certainly enough implied relationships there to draw some lines. The question that crossed my mind is this: why did Ben connect with Algorand specifically? I mean, yes, there's a connection between the two nations and economies and down to model IP laws. However, what is it that and where is that missing link that explains why Ben, who has a holistic approach to tackling poverty and economic issues in Nigeria, that brought him to Algorand? The answer to that is here. Quote, with Developing Africa Group not planning to waste any time, the company has chosen Koibanx and popular blockchain network Algorand, following the Nigerian government's approval, to get things started. It is worth noting that this is not the first time Koibanx and Algorand will be partnering on an initiative. The duo has worked on several initiatives, including in the public and private sectors across Latin America, end quote. Now, what's a key ingredient here is something that happened back in 2021, and that's called the eNaira. That's ENAIRA. eNaira is a central bank digital coin. Consider this headline: Nigeria's digital currency, what the eNaira is for and why. So the eNaira does not use Algorand. Instead, research suggests that it uses Stellar. The Nigerian central bank partnered with a company called BIT Inc., that's BITT, which provided the technology platform. So this raises a key and interesting question. How did Algorand and Ben really connect? And also, why? Clearly, there's already a CBDC in place. What is going on here? To explain how preposterous this entire situation is, consider that Koibanx is headquartered in Buenos Aires. Ben's Developing Africa Group is located in the United Kingdom, and all of this is involving a blockchain that will one day be a symbol of national pride of Italy and the nation state of Nigeria. So according to Crunchbase, Koibanx, and just note, I'm likely pronouncing this wrong because I have a very unique speaking style. According to Crunchbase, Koibanx was founded in 2014, and yet, according to this website, they were actually founded in 2013 in the United Kingdom. Okay, this is getting pretty weird, right? So Koibanx is headquartered in Buenos Aires, but may have been initially founded in London as an investment bank focused on virtual currencies. but then pivoted to Buenos Aires for some reason. Who are the investors behind Koibanx then? Well, the lead investor is actually a firm based out of El Salvador. That's Enogen Capital. But there's another investor called Finavista, who, if you Google them for possible offices in Nigeria, well, there is this. And here's the thing. If you click on this link, you won't find that Finavista actually has an office in Nigeria. Instead, you discover that they are connected to an outfit called rainmaking.io. Well, that's becoming very interesting. And why do I say that? Well, if you go to the About Us page on rainmaking.io, and keep in mind this is the broader organization behind Finavista, here's what you find. A huge list of names connected to the United Kingdom. But that's just not quite enough. In 2015, there was an article published on Finavista that caught my eye. Quote, "Would it be possible to end poverty through digital banking?" End quote. The themes of the article all line up with the press release about the African initiative. However, there's still no direct link to this Ben in any of the African-Nigeria partnership. So let's pause for a moment and consider when I said that Ben is connected to also an organization called Security Africa Ltd. Here's on the screen a registered number and information about that organization. You'll note that it was founded in London, England, in effect in the United Kingdom. And so it was at this point that maybe I would never quite close the loop. That was until I found one article buried so deep in the internet that I couldn't quite believe it existed and blew my own lid. This article is written by Ben. The title is this, quote, "Why I Am Excited About WorldPay Inc., end quote, by Ben Oguntala. And now allow me to put on this image of the Algorand and Koibanx partnership with Developing Africa Group. You'll note the two pictures of the individual involved. Right, it's the same picture. So how did Ben come across Algorand? Well, he's deep in the payment space. If you examine a list of customers or clients his firm works with, everything starts clicking into place. Ben perhaps realized that he could help his home of Nigeria leapfrog the Western world by getting them looped into the action. And that's certainly some speculation, but I do know this. This is Unusual Due Diligence. I am your host, Poseidon, god of the sea and animate milkshake. In today's fresh episode, we traveled the world on one unbelievable journey. Can we go back to the part where the IMF and Algorand are talking at the same conference? Holy cow. Make waves, my friends.